So I'm going to throw a couple of quick plugins on these tracks. One other little thing we didn't cover yet that I wanted to was group channels. So I've got these two guitars. I think I've got a balance of them together that sounds pretty good to me. So I'm going to add a group channel. Actually, I'm going to do it this way. And it's going to be a stereo group channel because I've got both guitars in there. It's going to go to the stereo out. I don't want it to be in a separate folder, and I'm going to call this guitar group. And there's just going to be one of them. Cool. So I'm going to send those guitars. So the guitars are individually going to stereo out. Instead, I'm going to send them to the guitar group, which itself goes to stereo out. So all that does is it allows me, so now I've got my blended guitars. Just a way I can reduce the volume both individually. And similarly, I can throw plugins on this channel to do the mixing. So I'll do a really quick mix here. So there's about 1 million different plugins that you can use in Cubase, both that come with it and third-party ones that you can purchase or subscribe to or whatever. So I'm going to throw a quick EQ and compression on both the vocals and the guitars, just to get this sounding a little bit more polished. So we'll start with EQ. I'm not going to go super into the details of EQing. That's covered in some of the other courses we've done with Creator Space. But I'm going to start with this stereo EQ. I'm going to roll off the low end from about 60 hertz or so. And I'm going to, actually I'm going to throw on my stereo output an analyzer. So in my vocals, let's see where the frequencies of these vocals are. Out the front door. So it looks like around 500. To another rainy day. Hey, ain't got no time. So a lot of energy in this 400 to 500 kind of range. So I'm going to do a little dip on the guitar EQ there just to let the vocals pop through a bit. And I'm gonna kind of sweep around in this guitar for the warm sunshine when you got that rent to pay. 'Cause you're so there's some kind of grossness there, so I'm gonna dip that out. Wage slave, just a wage slave. Some tinniness around here. Gonna dip that down too. Away. So now let's do the vocals. Same thing. In this case, I'm just gonna do a mono EQ. Slave, you're a. So there's usually some gross sounding nasal stuff around 1000. So I'm just going to sweep around and find the worst of it. And then I'm going to dip it right down. Wage slave. Warm sunshine when you got that rent to pay. 'Cause you're a wage slave, just a wage slave. You're a. So it's important to hear how they sound together. A wage slave. So I'm going to throw some compression on there too. And again, there's other courses that'll cover this stuff in a little bit more detail. This is the compressor that I like for my voice. I generally use the same one on guitars. So yeah, as you can see, this is the inserts portion of the inspector when you select a track to get that kind of stuff back with your inputs and outputs. You just press that little arrow. But the inserts is a key component. You can use EQs under this equalizers part of the inspector too, but I prefer to do it with inserts just because I like these plug-in EQs. I'm just used to using them, and they have some kind of nice visual stuff that you can helps to understand and to work quickly. So I've got let's get a compressor stereo on this. On this guitar group, same one. So with plugins, and we won't get too much into plugins today, but they often have presets that you can load from this various menus. There's some up here too. Excuse me. So we'll go with the acoustic guitar one here. And we'll turn off this analog sound. So we'll just see what that does.
You're a wage slave, just a wage slave. You're a
Okay, that sounds okay to me. Again, I'm just kind of quickly playing with settings, getting things the way I know I like them. And we'll go into more detail on that in a future session.
To another rainy day, hey, ain't got no time for the warm sunshine when you got that rent to pay.
All right, so I'm gonna throw a little reverb on both of these. So I'll show you effects tracks as well. So we'll add an effects track. Yeah, it's already got a reverb selected, so that works. And I'm going to go down to the sends in each of these tracks, or rather in the vocal track and the guitar group track. And I'm going to send my vocal to the reverb. Same with the guitars. And I'm going to do it at the same level, 0 decibels. So this is going to sound really reverby.
'Cause you're a wage slave.
So you can kind of dip the reverb track in the mix until it sounds the way you want it. So the way I usually do that is I'll crank it right down to 0. I'll start it at way too much, then crank to 0, and then bring it back up until it sounds about right.
Just a wage slave. You're a wage slave. You're a wage slave.
Should have warmed up before I sang that. Blah. Okay, so I'm going to change the reverb actually. I think I like this one better.
You're a wage slave.
Cool. So that sounds okay. On the stereo output channel, we haven't really done much other than plug our analyzer in there. But I do want to put a limiter on here, and I tend to use this one. So all that does is it prevents things from peaking. So you can set this output ceiling to -0.1, which is kind of the standard. You never want to go beyond that because, as you can see, this is peaking here.
Slave.
Which means it was going above 0.
Just a wage.
And you can use this threshold setting to kind of put a bit more compression on the whole mix. That's the cool thing about this stereo output channel is any plugins you put on it affect the whole mix. So that's kind of where you do your mastering and stuff, which again is part of a completely different lesson. So I'll just show you how that sounds like when you compress the mix.
Slave. You're a wage slave. You're a
So you can see it's attenuating, which means it's kind of crushing it down with compression, and it's making the peaks quieter, or compressing them, and bringing up the lower volume stuff so that everything kind of has a little bit less dynamic range and sounds a little bit tighter and kind of more in your face. That's the main use for a compressor or limiter. Limiter being the difference in a limiter being that it limits from going above a certain threshold no matter what, which is good for using on your stereo output because it prevents things from peaking. So that's basically it as far as the intro to Cubase. Once you've got your demo recorded and you've done a little bit of mixing, you'll want to select the range of the track that you want to export, and you can press the P key, and that'll just set it to the limits of what you want. If you're collaborating with someone and you want to send them a bounce that'll start at the same point in their project, make sure you tell them what the tempo is and that you run this back all the way to 0 for the range of your export. For me, I'm just bouncing this part. So then you would, make sure you save. I don't think I've saved this project yet. Nope. Cubase intro class. Yeah, that's another thing. Save often and early. So to export your finished demo, you go to File, Export, Audio Mixdown. It's actually got the project from my last course there. So usually you set it to your project name. I mean, this song's called Wage Slave Acoustic Demo. Drop it in a folder where you will be able to find it. The channels to export, in this case, you just want to export your stereo output, which is your main out. You can export individual channels too if you want. If you're for collaboration, that's helpful. But in this case, we just do the stereo out. And naming scheme, I don't want it to say the channel name. I don't care about that. So yeah, I'm going to do it as an MP3. You can also do waves, various other lossless files, but typically wave files and MP3s are the only ones I ever bounce. There's some advanced options. You can do it as a mono mix, which is useful sometimes if you want to bounce a stereo track down to a mono track. You can split it into left and right channels into 2 separate channels if that's something you want to do. But for the most part, you can leave that kind of stuff alone. Also, if you're applying effects to a track and you want to keep them, you can export with your effects turned on and bring it back in as an audio track to your project. But again, we're not really doing anything like that right now. So now I'll perform the audio export, and boom, in a few seconds we'll have an MP3 of our demo. So yeah, thanks for checking this out, guys. Bearing with me through some of the technical hurdles that came up from time to time. But it's been a pleasure teaching you guys the basics of Cubase, and yeah, hit me up if you have any questions. I'm at redroomrecordings.ca. Thanks again, and have a good one. Happy demoing.